Okay, so we finished Matthew chapter 23, and I thought I would share a little bit of something of my own other personal Bible study that I've been doing. So, this is how I I function. Is when I'm doing my studies, I am studying in the chapter of the Bible that, of course, like what I've been going through with Matthew, this has been my personal study. But then occasionally I'll also have this question that will come to mind, and I'll start asking these questions. And it'll take me on another Bible study, and that's what happened with this. So I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey into a couple parts, and maybe I'll share these snippets along the way as I'm kind of going through this process. But it started with my shop, Chavamade, actually. And I was just asking some questions about Eve. And I had already studied the name Eve years ago, which is why I have the name Chavamade. If you're not familiar with it, Chava is the Hebrew name for Eve. Okay, so Eve means mother of life. And so if she is mother of life, and I'm actually pronouncing Shava wrong, but for the sake of English Americanizing it, we'll use that. I say it Shava made. That's how I pronounce this. But in Hebrew, I think it's like Chava. Chava. You have to correct me if you actually are Jewish. I'm sorry if I butchered that. But anyway, this has been the study. So my question was, when did Eve receive her name? And this is when everything kind of began the process of this study. And this is what I love because God loves our questions, and when we ask questions, then He gives us answers and takes us on this journey of learning. So this is where I kind of was going. So in Genesis, when you know Eve partook of the tree, and that her husband, of course, was beside her, and he also ate of the forbidden tree, so or forbidden fruit. But he's right next to her, so they are sharing in this temporary pleasure that obviously is forbidden. Um, and all of a sudden, they're overcome by these unfamiliar feelings of shame, and they feel dirty and unclean. And so, of course, they go and hide. Well, again, this is something that's unfamiliar to them. So, their need to be clean and to be pure, which is even something that we do now, is we want to get it away, right? When we feel unclean, we got to get it away, get it off. Well, for them, what they do is they try to shift it. They try to take that shame and brush it off on the other person and pass it on. And that's where they start blaming. But Eve opens the door a crack whenever she takes the fruit. So she opens a crack, and there's so much you can go into this. I'm not going to go into really deep, but this is just to kind of get us into the next direction where I'm trying to go. So Eve opens the door crack. Adam, who is supposed to be the authority lead here in the garden and the protector, he pushes the door open instead of protecting her, stopping her, or doing anything to prevent this from happening. He actually pushes the door open, walks through, and leads them both through. And yet, instead of taking responsibility for that action, he blames Eve. But the sin can't be passed off onto somebody else. You're still responsible for the sin that you commit. And so both of them aren't able to push the sin off on each other or on the snake. They are each responsible for their own decision in participating in this. So a sacrifice had to be made to cover both of their sins. Now, this is where I was getting that the Lord kind of showed me in all of this. So part of the curse was that Eve would have pain in childbearing. We see this in, let's see, well, if I can turn my page, Genesis 3, and it goes to the woman in verse 16. To the woman he said, I will greatly increase your pains in childbearing. With pain you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you. Okay, so we know that that's part of her curse. But after the last words of of God and their exit from the garden, what does Adam do? So, right after this, in verse 19, God is cursing Adam, and he says, since from it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you will return. What is the very next verse? Adam named his wife Eve because she would become the mother of all living. This is before they even depart the garden. And this was just mind-boggling to me when it clicked, because he gives Eve a new name. So he blamed her first, and so her purpose, her identity is, according to him, is saying you're the mother of all living, and God is going to have children come from her womb. She is going to bring forth life. But she opened the door to death. But instead of Adam giving her a name that says death, or open door, or all these things, or sin separation, or he doesn't give her that kind of a name. He doesn't even turn to her and say, serves you right, you deserve to suffer. He doesn't treat her that way. Something in him changes from the beginning, where he blames her, to now. He doesn't focus on the pain, he focuses on what she would be. She speaks prophetically. Of course, God had already told the woman that she will have children, she will give birth. But we don't seem to have any indication that they had children before the garden, because it was just for them when they left. So they hadn't seen this in their lives, that they've had children yet. But he blesses her and says, you will be the mother of all the living. Um, So he once called her woman, which just means a helper. Which doesn't just mean, there's actually a lot more. I might go into that on another video, because it's powerful too. But he called her woman, which is a helpmeet. But now he calls her his Eve. He doesn't give her a name of death. He speaks, or shame, or blame. He doesn't give her any name that has any of that connotation. He blesses and speaks life over her. And then he takes the time, because right after that, the Lord, of course, made garments of skin for Adam, and his wife, and they get clothed, and then he banishes them. And once they're out of the garden, because this is all takes place, he names Eve, God clothes them, and then they're banished from the garden. Well, right after that, it says Adam lay with his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. What happens a lot of time when there's a fight between a husband and a wife is that there's one of two things that happen. Either they go apart from each other, they're so upset with each other, they go apart from each other, or they reconcile and come together, and you have a really great makeup. Well, apparently that's what happens here. And so he doesn't reject her. He actually pulls her close, and they become reconciled. He responds by helping her fulfill the identity that God implied, that they would have children, and that she would be the one to bring forth life and to nurture this life. Isn't that a beautiful picture of what God does for us? Even though we sin and we hurt him and we do these things against him, God still wants reconciliation. He still calls us to himself, and he gives us a new name, and he clothes us in righteousness. If we receive him, of course, obviously, he clothes us in righteousness, and we enter into this intimate time with him to learn of him, to know his heart. It's just amazing to me. What a beautiful picture that God does this for us. We talked about Adam being, of course, this is the first Adam, and then Jesus is like the second Adam. And it's the same thing. I mean, you see different parts. That Jesus didn't sin. He came and obeyed and did not sin. Whereas this Adam did disobey. But you do see that he gives his bride a new name. So through the seed of a fruit of disobedience and the nurturing act of Eve to share it with her husband, death was brought forth, because that was out of disobedience. But through the seed of that same man, in an act of obedience to be fruitful and multiply, and the nurturing act of the same woman, so you have the combination that was not good and that brought forth death, but the combination that was in Christ, in God, that brought forth life, and that's where they had their children. Life was birthed. So I think there's more that I can go into, that I'm kind of digging into this more. But one of the other thoughts I had was that I'm kind of digging into. And maybe you can add in your comments. What do you think before I get to this? Because I'm just in the beginning studies of it. But is there a correlation between this And the verse that says, "A woman is saved in childbearing." Um, I think part of it may be the reversing of the curse as women, as we trample the head of the serpent, that's almost declaring over it, "I will be a life giver and not a life taker with every child." I've made these hats, and this is only my first one because I'm gonna actually make it bigger and more bold so you can see it. But I wrote life giver, and I have the Hebrew uh, letters for Eve on it as well, because that's what a woman, a mother is. She's a life giver. And so anyway, it's been an exciting study, and this is also why I have the shirt that says "Made to Give Life." We are, as women, as mothers, we are made to give life. Whether you are a mother of from your own womb, or you're adopted, you've adopted children, you foster children, you're a spiritual mother. We're made to give life. And Adam spoke this over his wife. So I speak that over you. If you are a mother, you are made to give life. You are to be a life giver. So let's fulfill that call and use our life, give life with your words and with your actions and with your nurturing heart. So I hope that encourages you in some way. And I hope I can share a little bit more of this study as I'm kind of delving into this more, and specifically on what it means to be a helpmate too. That's the next part of this study that's been really good. So stay tuned. But next week we will jump back into Matthew 24. And if we have if we finished it in the 4 days, then on the fifth day I'll share the next part about the Eve.